Ears up, eyes open, and fists clenched. Y'all know what this is, now we do this. Been going through a lot of shit and survived a lot of hits, so cats really wanna know what's happening. Yo, no further ado, you about to hear straight from the Cub Panthers. God takes your soul. I've been surrounded by more rats than the Oakland man on a good day. Simultaneously, snakes that smiled in my face while putting in work with the pigs and attempted to put me away. Like Hollywood actors, I've been infiltrated by counterfeit cats claiming to have love for the Panthers. When we violated the script in order that the cub be behind the cage or placed in the grave. Nah, for those liberal listeners who don't want to believe what they read or hear, let me be clear what I have to say. I've been subjected to more backstabbers than the OJs would even proclaim. I've been financially fucked over that at times I'm unable to tell if I'm in debt or simply dead. And I've been lied on so many times I couldn't even believe what I read. While others have profited of my being my daddy's pain, a bunch of parasites and pussycats who only claim our names and fist their financial gain. Minister UEP News said that his mama said that a preacher said that a certain amount of suffering is good for the soul. You see, my birth certificate was almost my death certificate. To be or not to be. I was born in the storm, baptized in blood and raised in the war zone. Now at the point that the system finds its success in listening to me in the Book of the Dead.
I want to switch just a little bit, and I wanted to ask you a question about your father, and I wanted you to speak on him in this context. I had asked a question, or posed a question to John Potosh, and I said to him, we know that revolutionaries produce revolutionaries through their seeds. Malcolm, several examples, Tupac, yourself included. And I asked him if that was the same case on the government side. And he had indicated that there were several officers who had sons who took on the same career, and sort of just kept on the same legacy. And it spoke to a little bit about the ongoing counterinsurgency, the ongoing COINTELPRO, the whole thing just continues. You were born, in many respects, a revolutionary. How did you become to know your father and the people who surrounded him? Just explain that process. Like, when did you become aware that he was who he was, and you were part of something that was perhaps greater than, more than what many other people would have to say as a part of their legacy? You understand the question?
Well, I think first I want to say that DNA is something. I do acknowledge that, but it alone doesn't. That alone doesn't designate. We're a force or an individual. How they're going to move. I mean, with all due respect, I guess the people who I love, but it is what it is. It ain't what it ain't. We can come together. We can pass the potato side of that family reunion. But as far as thinking that they engaged in the struggle just because we related, certain. I say, you talk about the yin. There's always yin and the yang, pros and cons, and like certain adversarial conditions also, like in particular the state. I think also that played an impact. I know it had a hell of an impact on me. I said I grew up in a city where not only the names of not only the situations have not changed, but in many cases the names have not changed. Some of the same individuals that targeted Chairman Fred and the Black Panther Party. Just I'm talking about one, just name a couple of them. The infamous, former mayor of Chicago, Mayor Daley Jr., and the role his father played on his tenure with Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. was assassinated. Joseph P. Grubezek, who was played a key role with the surveillance and assassination of Chairman Fred, who was a part of the infamous Red Squad in Chicago. The same Joseph P. Grubezek that was part of what they referred to as the Legion of Justice in Chicago that later grabbed the various law enforcement agencies to give me the trumped up charges that was issued in 1992. But just taking into account, the state does study, bloodline. I've been, and that's a reality. In fact, I think North Korea did. North Korea had a situation, and they may still have it, where they would have prisoners, and they would have them go through, I think, 3 generations. For lack of better terms, getting ready to fight out. The punks, the ones that were working with the South Koreans, and they would lock that person up, and they would go through generation and next generation. And their position was to weed out the ones who were collaborators, or who worked in the interests of U.S. imperialism. You know what I'm saying, one way or another. I like the term of Richard Pryor. Comedic genius Richard Pryor refers himself as a peopleologist. In many cases, I say I'm a revolutionary, but I like that too, a peopleologist. I study people, and I've seen that, So I think that DNA can play a hell of an impact. But as a member of the colonized community, who we are not even in power of the infrastructure, the conditions that we're subjected to. We are a lot of us, by us being under reactionary conditions. You know what I'm saying? It's we don't really can't say how we gonna move as a child. What we aspire to be to. Like I say, one generation may grow up and say I want to be a football player, next one a rapper, so on and so forth. And I definitely want to point out that I've seen the photographs of Chairman Fred, after being assassinated, not a pretty picture. And I done had abstract romanticism. Like, man, when I grew up, I want to get assassinated, or I want to get locked up, But I was on a day-to-day basis. I was continuously reminded one way or another that what Malcolm said, that even if you lay down for this system and say, okay, master, am I straight now? This system is so dogmatic, so parasitical. They say, no, nigga, turn over. It exploits you some more. So that being reminded with that, you know what I'm saying? And again, being fortunate to grow up in a climate where not just that was a foregone conclusion that I would follow on, but cats held me accountable. They say, okay, we respect you as his son, but what we respect your call as young chairman. We're gonna see how you operate inside the concentration camps. See, are you just doing this as because it's fashionable now? You know what I'm saying? They seen me take the position when it was not cool. So I can remember times being suspended from school, writing about the chairman of the Black Panther Party. I remember some of my counterparts on the streets laughing at me. Oh, you think he back in the '60s? You know what I'm saying? And it has, into this day, it impacts all sorts of relationships or lack thereof. And just even have the climate of the type of discussions about the movement, and not in some sort of vacuum, like you're detached from the community. No, this is necessary. I'm not just doing this on some. I'm mad, because they killed my daddy. Something you barely do. People never hear me say this. The U.S. government assassinated Chairman Fred. They snatched one of our leaders from our community. And so those are just some of the dynamics that impact me. And I was, telling someone earlier today, I said, it's hard for me to, bite my tongue on certain things. I was fortunate to fall from a tree of 2 freedom fighters. And I also say, Daddy didn't make no chumps, Mama didn't raise no punks. As my first milk was, from Black Panther Party Free Breakfast Program. And it's the timing that you get information, all that, who it comes from, it impacts you. I was watching this animal channel the other day, and they was some farmers, that they brought the veterinarian. He looked at one of the bulls. He said, the bull is emaciated. He said, wait a minute. He said, the bull is, what we feed him? He said, he can live. He said, however, the bull was deprived of food at a key point of his life. He said his growth is stunted. his growth is stunted. You know what I'm saying? So I was fortunate to come into contact with certain forces at certain times in my life. You know what I'm saying? Even when I was held captive, they really impacted me. And again, not with the state, not to negate the impact they had on me. I mean, the first piece of steel I ever came into contact with was the Chicago Police Department's revolver. Now, my mother, her prenatal care was not a doctor's stethoscope placed on her pregnant belly. She had just turned 18 years old, 8.5 months pregnant. Chicago police put a revolver to her stomach, opened up robe and told her she better not run. This is in the cold December of 1969. Then I was placed in jail with her before I got it. That was my maternity ward, the jail cell. So this is my first introduction to the judicial system. I mean, I hear stories of people say, they grew up with the Boy Scouts and learned this and that. My first contact before I got here, man, this is how this system gets down. And you know what I'm saying? I mean, through the colonial schools, you name it, just hearing it and just seeing it. And a lot of things that we took, I told my mom when I was was unleashed, serving a little bit under 9 years inside those concentration camps. I said, some things a lot of things we take for granted. It's not even known. I remember I was in this place, Joliet, one of the concentration camps in northern Illinois. And I remember the movie Malcolm X, it came, Spike Lee version of Malcolm X. This guy upstairs, one of the street organizations, he was like, man, that's what happened to dude. He had no reference to Malcolm X. And I was like, damn. I said, man, stuff that just took for granted, you know what I'm saying? It's like they're growing up. You don't talk to the police. They're not your friends. I done met people, it's like a foreign territory to me, and to me, and I think I even had a certain amount of idealism for a while, and the politics helped me to be more scientific and strategic. Like a lot of us, struggled with me recently. Chairman, you don't struggle with us like you used to. I said, well, the clinical definition of that is if you keep on doing saying the same thing over and over, it's insanity. It's insanity, and the stakes are too high and the resources are too low for me to afford that luxury. You know what I'm saying? And it's stuff that I be so Chairman, everybody didn't grow up with like you did. I sympathize with that, but the reality is there are certain lessons that cats have to grasp on, and as Lenin said in the Russian Revolution, that what takes people 20 years to learn in ordinary times, they learn in 2 years of revolutionary time. So I'm fighting for my sanity. We're fighting to create a climate where cats can pick up quick. You know what I'm saying? And we welcome contradictions. A lot of people don't want contradictions to come. They want to keep on fighting for this. Let's keep everything cool. Contradictions help identify you, the counterpart. You learn about yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like in Chicago, a lot of different organizations was used initially. We about the same thing. As you think so, and you see their response on a certain pressure. When I first came home from the concentration camps, it was this big ball. Everything's the same. Entertainers, rappers, freedom fighters, revolutionaries. I'll listen to the conversation people were saying. And it took certain contradictions where people start saying, oh, no, that's not me. I'm on this. I said, which, you know what I'm saying? And clarity, you need that. So we don't have disappointments. You know what I'm saying? And that's, contradictions, they exist. If we don't acknowledge them, they can become antagonistic contradictions. You know what I'm saying? And so certain experiences I went through also, not just the DNA, it helped me, to distinguish, okay, no, this is that. This is a revolutionary. This is a revolutionary act. This is stealing. This is liberating. This is reactionary. This is revolutionary. You know what I'm saying? So being this a city that was and remains to be one of the top segregated cities in the country, Chicago, even to recognize the class contradiction. This is still this whole idealism that we all so I think the majority of black folks speak French at the wrong time. We don't all have the same interests. And we reminded about it on a continuous basis. And I had to learn fast, or get in my lane or get ran over.
One of the things I want to ask you about is the system, and you obviously are in this to win. And the system seems to have a picture of itself that portrays the strength of itself in a way where you'd be hard-pressed to find its weaknesses, the way that it portrays itself. Obama recently said something to the effect of, when the world's in trouble, they don't call Russia. They don't call China. they call us. They seem to be everywhere with boots on the ground, drones in the air, um, uh, just imposing its force all over the place in Afghanistan and Ferguson. Is that picture the reality? How strong is it? Are there weaknesses that we can exploit to overcome them, win, defeat, destroy, replace? Help me understand the real sort of strength.
The United States is it's the powerhouse of plantations. It's the big kahuna of capitalism. It's the shot caller, and there are several things that that make that factual. One, as I said, we quote with Malcolm X, El Haj Malik El Shabazz has said that America's democracy is an hypocrisy. It's a front. It's a facade. However, its strength is it's never, as opposed to other places, throughout the world. America is so Machiavellian with its tactics. The facade of freedom. It allows it to, challenge, other places on human rights violations or political prisoners or any other contradictions, and it never, and be called in the question itself. Because it's back up even present day society, present day with the face of U.S. government right now, Barack Obama. That is no doubt about it. That sets that Machiavellian tactic right there alone. This system is extraordinary. So as soon as cats were coming to question about this whole thing about this Bush, whatever language they were using, the U.S. imperialists was being like, this was the most. This is the head criminal. The world was talking about this, and this Barack Obama move, this latest presidential selection that they pulled, it really was a Machiavellian tactic. So it's again, it's a power base, but again, we recognize that what the Sandinistas said in Latin America, that the will of the people is greater than the man's technology. But however, prior to any other discussions, saying about advancement struggle, what's primary, must be initially be addressed, acknowledged, is what I think Sun Tzu said in the Art of War. Cardinal principle of warfare is know thyself and know thy enemy, and a classification of who, not this foregone conclusion that people or just draw that everyone wants to have the same interest. And again, contradictions are necessary. You've seen positions that people took, the people took, even with the Barack Obama, with the election selection, or even with that of different entertainers in response to the Ferguson, Missouri, people that you thought, the cast that thought they were progressive or gangsters or whatever the case, or at least rebelling against the system. It took contradictions to happen, and this is net to find out who is who and learn about yourself. So that's what has to happen to be a classification. But the words that America uses, like the great melting pot, that's strategic for this whole vagueness. One of America's tactics is to create chaos and restore order. See, to create chaos and restore order, this vague, don't, they get our community to believe, don't acknowledge the race question. What you tell that to every, the police in the 17th precinct in New York, or the police in Chicago, or the phone company. I met a young lady. She worked for the cell phone company. I think it was Sprint, and she got me her own mouth. She said when they train them, depending on how your vernacular, your voice. If you sound white, they figure out how to ways to work a deal out for your bill. So race is something that I'm not a racist. I'm a realist. But this system is so the audacity to tell at this stage of the game to use terms like post-racial society, and you see case after case what's continuously happening to the black community, from the disproportionate amount of foreclosures in the home. So, just the policies that they have now, a lot of the prisons where many of the black prisoners are being outnumbered by the state is putting the cartel, represent the Mexicano cartel 4-1 around any black prisoners. That's a problem. And the race to them is a tool, it is a historical tool that U.S. imperialism has used, and that was it ain't broke, don't fix it. And but you have the people puppeting this. Oh, no, we passed that now. I tell people, I say, I mean, I don't even want to call it a discussion. Was it for real? This, I mean, I talk. I say this is really. I say, wow, this system, the individuals they grabbed, to my in the insanity that he was saying. I thought someone would come out the backstage and say, "You've been punked. This is a joke. He really not this dumb. He don't really feel this way." I said, "Damn, this dude really is seriously stating this." And I said, see, we get caught up thinking just something's political, just through the electoral political representative, the Congress, the Senate, the president, so on and so forth. This government recognizes that everything is political. They will have different entertainers puppet certain positions. They will have the movies, the propaganda they put out. Matter of fact, everything, the children's programs. You'll see people puppeting and parroting, regurgitating ruling class rhetoric and nonsense. And you know what I'm saying? So again, and we have to. That's the first step. We have to classify and identify, and that's it's a. And I know it seems like lots of people want to take cliff notes for say, well, man, Chairman, let me know how we gonna get out. To get out, I'm tired of all this talking and studying. Once that process is done in a real authentic type of way, where we really have input. A lot of times it's again, like I mentioned earlier in regards to Ferguson. What's unique about it is it's real deal type of discussion. It's happening as opposed to these fraud state sanctioned discussions where a lot of times the people they give us, it's like they had these talk shows, these different people that ask these different opinions. It's really like a police talking to a child with a piece of candy right there. The child, So am I saying the right thing? And they know how to go along. And you look a lot of leaders they give, they provide for our community. A lot of entertainers, well, man, they don't say no, they don't ever rap about nothing. They know when they go up and they what to say. There was a big issue. I was on some panel at some college. I wasn't invited. Who came there, and one of you asked me, say, Chairman, I know you be with a lot of different, entertainers, different. He said, how do I, I'm trying to make it. You trying to, get in there. And I said, well, you just your goals. Yeah, I said, well, you probably just gotta say niggas and bitches a whole bunch of times. And everybody's like, Chairman, you shouldn't tell. I'm look. I mean, I turn on any clear channel control radio for 7 in the morning. A child is on the way to school. He or she going to be raped, killed, beat before they get to school. This is we can in Chicago. I test it. Go call Detroit, LA, Cleveland, same time in the morning. And this was on the radio. And what the slaves? What did they say? To get to this position? Literally, listen. It's not no conspiracy theory. Listen to the lyrics that they said. That's what you trying to get it. You trying to make it in this machine. That's what it's based on. So it's not. So that's the first thing we have to classify and identify. Now I can't stress that enough.
You touched on it a little bit, but I want you to expound on this in a little bit different way. This idea that the government is powerful. You're saying that the people can win. What is that? How does that manifest? How does that come about? How does the win get articulated? Because even in the program today, we heard basically a few little sparks that basically started the Panthers. Brother getting killed in Richmond, and there was one other example that they gave. But essentially, there were moments and things that happened that created out of that spontaneous thing that happened, and this real kind of conversation began and it turned into. How does the evolution of that actually go beyond to where we win? Like, how does that manifest?
Politics is not only the distribution of food, clothing, and shelter. It's also the dynamics of, who do we receive it from, how do we view it, how we view ourselves, how we view resistance, time and location, all that. Like even with the, different historical movements, um, the reality is that people get involved in struggle one of three ways: inspiration, aspiration, or desperation. In this, contrary to the whole, belief that everyone has that with the American Revolution, that what Patrick Henry said, "Give me liberty, give me death," that the whole American populace took that position. The reality is what Thomas Jefferson pointed out, that 1/3 was for it, 1/3 was against it, and 1/3 went whichever way the wind blew. Prior to me being incarcerated, prior to me being kidnapped, locked up in those brutal concentration camps, I just thought everyone who was being oppressed, they were ready to fight back. That's not the case. In the '60s, there was, there would, it would be ideal to see everyone join the Black Panther Party because they wanted to serve the people. The reality was there was a lot of different people came for different reasons. There was those that was inspired, there was those that had aspirations, and those that was desperate in conditions. Situation without back to what I said, identify and classify. It's extremely difficult in America, the colonized community, because American imperialism is so intrinsic on how it it entwines itself within the mind, body, and soul of the people. You can't. It's hard to define what you're saying as opposed to regurgitating master's words. It's I had a struggle today. Again, today a lot of interesting discussions, and there was a big discussion about the orphans that come from Colombia, I believe, and that people say, well, the U.S. should not accept the orphans, so on and so forth. Now, I guarantee you that these particular orphans come from the State Department has a psychological profile on the children that inside U.S. imperialism, and they already have marked what schools they're going to send them to, and later on down the road they're going to know they're going to send them back to be representatives for the Colombian community. A lot of times, most people be reactionary. All they will see they're Colombian physically, how they look. Negating them, who they have been trained and raised by, who gave them their first milk. You follow what I'm saying? And a lot of times I tell people I pick who I struggle with. I can literally I'll debate with certain people. I say, oh yeah, this is coming from his mate, his loved one, his child, his mother, and not deeper than that. But this is coming from her husband, whatever the case may be. But it's actually deeper than that. That's time you're not debating with an individual, you're debating with a certain university. You're debating with her mother's church. And in essence, you're debating with the state. And people become defensive and subjective. They defend. Well, my mama went to that church. And you have to go past and say, no, I'm not attacking you. You know what I'm saying? The ideas of the state they have given to you via, through your counterparts, your loved ones, your family members, so on and so forth. But it's ideas of imperialism. Which way and that was one of the uniqueness even with the Black Panther, the timing of the Black Panther Party. You're talking about up north, the first generation regards to the Great Migration. A lot of people came from the South. So usually when you the brutal practice of chattel slavery in this state, you can break one generation. The reverb effect is going on and on. And a lot of times we get caught up. We come in like you go to a new place. A cat that goes into a prison. You come in, you don't read the orientation manual. You go to a new school. You look around, see how other students are operating. How they move. You go to a church or a mosque. You go around and say, okay, everybody else taking their shoes off. You fall in. And a lot of times, like the same locale and generation, we come up. Don't look master in this. Don't look the white man in his eye. Don't back talk. Don't say. And it becomes the norm. Then the time was seized with individuals in a different locale, different place. So now all of us are quote unquote new around here. We're seeing what's happening. Everybody ain't got their feet settled yet. So you have first generation up there up north. So that you have a generation of children. I love you, mom and daddy, but hold on. You knew this here too now. Up here, it's a different dynamic. And that was a generation that said we still love you, but man, we not get up under this picture of white Jesus. And they challenged it. You follow what I'm saying? There's so many cases. it's hard. It's like trying to do surgery on yourself. Before and a lot of times you have forces that become reactionary. Their issues that they have, you know what I'm saying, and they're attacking themselves, and and literally, you know what I'm saying, and after a while you swinging blindly, and you're not attacking the system, you're fighting amongst the people. It's a reactionary response, as opposed to an objective analysis. I said, wait a minute. I told this few weeks back. I was having a discussion. I was distinguishing for this piece I was talking about. I said, black hatred. Hold on. Black men and women hatred, white men love and hatred. And I say, now let's be very clear. I was saying, they have issues with Lil Wayne with the misogyny and disrespect for women. I said, no, Lil Wayne is black women. Let's distinguish that. It's black women. You know, I said, the young lady, the white girl, he's talking about marrying, very respectful when he's in her presence. The way he walks with everything, it's a different dynamic. Different dynamic. Not these entertainers. Now, the terms they use for the black woman, that's a different dynamic. And I told this young lady, we used to have a discussion, I say, no, I think you should be clarified. You have an issue with black men. She said, no, men. I said, no, black men. I said, you got an issue with, with your father being locked up, but you have no issue with the white warden who locked him up. You know what I'm saying? And these type of conversations that we had to start having that the state exploits. You follow what I'm saying? It's not this generalization, the race dynamic. Imperialism, this system is so Machiavellian. As Field Marshal George Jackson said, capitalism not only affects the economy, but it affects the psychic of the people. You follow what I'm saying? So that's what's so difficult, in particular with this system. It's like it's ingrained. It's a battle, because the reality is all of us have bourgeoisie tendencies. We're fighting for our manhood, our womanhood, our childhood. Children can't talk about being children in this society. You follow what I'm saying? And to keep out what is the principal contradiction? And at the same time, acknowledging that there are contradictions, acknowledging that there are some casualties of war within our community. So some forces up to it. You will be people telling, Chairman, why don't you just try to talk to certain people? I say, you need certain conditions and elements. It's like growing vegetables. It's like on this floor right here. We just said, okay, I'm gonna put some seeds down, some tomato seeds down, and grow. That's a arrogance. Forget the sun, the rain. That's needed for that to grow. Certain people's conscious level, whether it be out of a disdain for the people, or petty bourgeoisie privilege or bourgeoisie privilege, they can be disconnected. Some black people, so you try to talk to some people, so they disconnected, like trying to debate with the Cosby Show kids, or the cast of the Amish Show. They're their own world, own bubble. You need interaction and contradiction to be able to grasp and pick up on certain things. But they're isolated. You follow? There's a big thing about the young girl, the actress Raven, Raven Simone, and she didn't identify as African American. I say, you'll be hard to find anyone. You're hard to find anyone in the cast members on that whole show that identify with black folks. Real talk. And it's not by happenstance who Bill Cosby had grasped. You follow what I'm saying? You better believe they have a psychological profile on who they grasp. Whether they know it or not is a different discussion. But they know there's a psychological profile. This movie, Sons of Anarchy, I'm crazy about this movie. It shows me political dynamics. And they just have Malcolm Jamal Warner in the movie. And I said, what type of genius this movie is. They put him with the motorcycle, the black motorcycle gang that everybody's referred to as the Orioles, who didn't identify the black community. And you see, like I said, sometimes this stuff be embarrassing when the state does the entertainers they give us and stuff. It's like they throw it in your face. The ones they be talking how long this gangster block. You go back and find out what this Ivy League where they came from, and you're like, what? But the state knew that all the time. They have a psychological profile, and they put them right in front of our face and say certain things they know are contradictions. You know what I'm saying? And they put them in arenas where they said, let them do all this rah. They know how far it's gonna go. Like a toothless dog to be in the front yard. You know what I'm saying?
You look at the mass media's role as supporting the state and supporting white supremacy, and it's how it's used against us. Even using our entertainers to feed us this sick type of stuff you want to call culture, but it's not really. So, how do we use our culture to defend our people? How do we create our own propaganda, and what role is it in its importance in our liberation?
extremely important. We got, I mean, and again, it cannot be detached from our struggle in general. You know what I'm saying? Again, we got to create a climate where that it's second nature that we understand that there's a war going on, and that we don't take for granted just because of a person is black or a person is quote unquote independent media, or because even the whole definition of the black press or progressive press. A lot of times people get caught up with thinking like, okay, it's a foregone conclusion. They speak in our interest, and you have to be real cautious with that because the state will give us these uh, fraud fights. Similar to like the situation with R.J. Reynolds, the tobacco company. When it was brought, issues brought about the whole tobacco agencies. R.J. Reynolds, they literally created the truth agency. So they say, okay, I'm going to get my opponent for you. I'm going to get this person's going to check me and call me the question. And they may call certain trivial contradictions out, but for all practical purposes, it's not hitting no major veins or arteries. So we got to be real careful even with in our community, particularly when they call the so-called progressive press. A lot of times it's like 6 and a half a dozen. So just kind of like Democrats and Republicans. So the accountability and really like people have an interaction with our community. See, that's what I tell people. Say it's not we could call this abstract morality discussion. Like what that person he means. Well, science. Let's speak about this scientifically. Can they relate to our community? You follow what I'm saying? This comes in our media representation. This comes in our spokesperson. The people they give us literally need a GPS map to find their way around the hood. You follow what I'm saying? The media representatives they come, they literally do not understand what we're speaking about. No other community would go for that. If you're going to bring someone, somebody just drop you off in Russia, you get to tell you want to explain, cover the situations in Russia, whether you mean well or not. Even like, wait a minute, you don't know the contradiction that we're dealing with over here. You know what I'm saying? How is there not community? They had Soledad O'Brien that showed that American that that was past the insult. I'm talking. A person that has no connection to our community. And literally, you look who they strategically picked out to go. They will grab people who are naive or have nefarious intent. And this is on a continuous basis. There's some checks and balances, accountability. That when we go through the community, can't say, oh, they know who Chairman Fred is. This has to go through our media, our spokespersons, every aspect of our community. There has to be some connection, some accountability, not just somebody just dropping up here's a foreigner. Okay, now he's gonna speak for you. You're gonna send him one for the day. It can't operate like that.
But like even with that rapper, when he I don't even know his name. The guy who said the blubbery, like, wow, we out here making money. You know what I'm talking about? No, the rapper, Young Thug. Somebody asked him, what do you think about the relationship between the police? And he basically paused for a second and says, I don't really talk about that stuff. I'll leave that up to other people. We out here making money. We doing our thing. Somebody had to put that. I don't care how far removed he is from the community. He's an African in this. He has to know that relationship between the police. Somebody had to got to him. Somebody had to say to him, look, don't talk about any of that stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not like an innocent thing. It's like, it has, is it more of a specific quelling? Like, like you'll be successful or you'll pass as long as you don't do X, Y, and Z? It has to be that, right?
I done seen paperwork with different record guys record companies like Sony literally told some guys why don't let Chairman Fred on the stage and address no political issues. It's not even no code words. You'll be surprised on what like what entertainers and athletes are told what they can say, what they can't do. There's a big hoopla I think a year and a half ago when that movie about Mumia Abu-Jamal, Long Distance Revolutionary. Shaquille O'Neal's supposed movie theater in New Jersey. He said they couldn't. He wouldn't show it. He couldn't show it. He said he would not allow it to be shown. You start seeing. Who pulls the strings? Literally, I'm talking the blatant stuff that I've seen with these entertainers. It's not no beating around the bush. It's not no code words. It's what they tell them. Who you can associate with, what you can say, what you cannot say. You start, after a while, it becomes so automatic. They, so they can let the leash off. They just start like, well, I'm going to choose to donate this money to this charity. Or they can't even pronounce the name of the charity. Don't know the history of the charity. You start looking at the coincidences. Like okay, no, even though say this, let's go with example. An individual does not know the history about the Barclays family. Which Rockefeller's probably even like Barclays. I mean, serious in history. Of the getting down. What I'm saying on colonized people. But then you look at in New York. I mean, I literally came to fisticuffs with this cat one time. I mean, we was protesting about when they first decided where they been the center at Jay-Z, Slave Z was the front piece for it, and initially the ruling class itself, the state, that came through to displacing the community from that area. And the people, the people was fighting back. Saying, no, we're not giving up our home. However, when they put this Negro's face on the front, people that got to let the guards down. Like, oh man, Jay-Z's he's going to have his own team, so on and so forth. And not even to mention the contradiction that were later exposed by he was to supposedly have 1/8 of 1,000,000% of the ownership, or whatever. But that's the arrogance of that. These cats wouldn't go for that on a drug block. You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't see them somebody from the sale drugs on a block. You just get 1/8 or 1/10 of a million of percentage of this here on the drugs. You crazy? But just when this Russian gangster will that move? I mean this ain't nothing that you get your financial analyst to check this. I mean it wasn't like they came back later on and switched around. They told them through the door. So the stuff that it's not, they tell them. So, and that whole dynamic of what people go for, from the system, what they would not allow from their colonized counterparts is way out. So and that's an interesting point. See, that's why I struggle with a lot of forces about this. See, the way you provide information to people, they take it. Like I don't like some of these artists I talk to. I don't have no false illusions that I've enlightened them and they come on the right side of the revolution. I don't have that false illusion. I know that when these different corporations and companies talk to these different entertainers, we don't explain to you the dynamics of what you support this clothing line. They get it that morning, run it. Ain't no ifs, ands, buts, and souls about it. And a criminal psychologist said that behavior is affected by consequences. When James Brown had that whole totally different song playing at first, A.Trap Brown and Little Jordan, man, you better go back in the studio with that garbage you're talking about. He came back out to when I'm black and I'm proud. See, it's certain things in the community we're not going for. It changes the dynamic. You start trying to get these abstract discussions, and if you have this illusion that you're so delusional that you're gonna individual who's been literally raised and made by the state that you're gonna compel to them. I remember when they had the hip hop summit in Chicago, when we was waiting in Russell Simmons' hotel room, and we expressed to him that there's gonna be certain issues addressed, at this summit, in particular the African anti-terrorism bill. So he called for the usual suspects, called down the different the state sanctioned leaders, and he came down. Our position was, no, they don't speak for us. Then when Ben Shavers was explaining to us how Ludacris is going to speak for us, no, we don't. No, we speak for ourselves. In fact, one of our forces said, no, them cats can't remember their own lines. How they gonna speak for us? And we literally went up at Columbia College, and they literally went up on the stage with pictures of G-Man that killed December 2nd, 2002. Darian Hamilton shot 15 times by Chicago Police Department on 72nd and Dorchester at Enrico Furman Elementary School. We had the pictures of him who was gunned down, and we surrounded that stage, went up there and said, no, in this city, this is what you talk about here. When he changed his whole speech, he said, that's right. The same week the Jam Master Jay was killed, there were 17 people killed by the police department. His brother, Ron Arlen, was like, whoa, they never heard Russell Simmons talk this type of way. People was calling me like, wow, what made this happen? I said, what do you think? Did he have some sort of vision? Or we held him accountable. We held him accountable. The way we held him accountable, we would not take nothing less. You know what I'm saying? And there was a respect for our community. They have for every other nationality and community. You dare not. When they go to studios, they know second nature. Don't disrespect certain people. With us, it's an automatic. Automatic. Well, I can get away with this. And if I say something bogus, I just go to NAACP, get the Image Award, just have a few dollars, so on and so forth, and business as usual. No. That cannot happen.
They seem to be afraid of that being exposed. Is that because once people hear it and it's acknowledged and it's sort of out there, that will sort of create acceptance? What I mean is, Russell Simmons making that statement, like, why would they care if he says what's on his mind? Like, what is it about the mind that they, why would they care if the truth is exposed? You get what I'm saying? It's like, why do they have to quell it with all this, effort? Why is it subdued? Why do they have to push it down?
Once our pain is acknowledged in an official, objective type of way, I'm not talking about just some sort of reactionary type of way, not just, well, I'm mad because this happened to me, and I go back and say, okay, well, I don't like this, but I'm cool with the system in this regard. Once you start seeing the consistency of connection, man, they taking babies over here in Atlanta. They call it this. They kidnapping our children in Chicago too, or they call it wrong gangs, but they locking us up. We going through this in Stateville and Folsom, and we have to New Orleans. They say get rid of us too, or they just change the words in St. Louis and Ferguson. Once that connection starts to be made, you see, like when the rebellions happened in Chicago one year, Mayor Daley, the former mayor of Chicago, he gave specific orders to the media. He said, "Do not report the riots." Why? Because if the West Side see the South Side came down, they go, "Wait a minute, let's make a connection." You can see, even in war, when you attack, this system in particular, when the attacks is soon to be, what they plan to be their victims, they dismantle communication, knock out communications. And once you start seeing from different people from all walks of life start acknowledging this here, and start making the connection, it's a problem. So that's why this whole, you got to see these puppets out there to say, regardless of what you're seeing, the opening argument for the state's attorney on the Rodney King case in Semi Valley, the LAPD beating Rodney King. The opening argument for the state's attorney to the jury was, they said, "Do not believe what you're about to see." When they showed the video of Rodney King, that was his opening argument. He said, "Do not believe what you're about to see." So they need these Russell Simmons and these other individuals to come out regardless of what's happening to you. Don't believe that. Don't believe that. No, because it's something. It's just, you know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, Russell Simmons was talking about in Chicago, how many millions of dollars, this new program, him and the mayor, Rahm Emanuel, for this thing about yoga in Chicago. So now, that says that the reason these children is dying at these alarming rates is they need to meditate. So why don't you try offering that to the Chicago Police Department? See if they can lay their guns down and just meditate. They stop killing children in the community. But to where they frame these arguments, it always goes back on the victims as the criminals. You know what I'm saying? And every time you come close, you're like, man, this is messed up. They're gonna bring out one of these Pied Pipers. You either play that music and distract you. What the movie was? 12 Years a Slave. You remember the part when the lady, they were taking the children from the lady, and she was rebelling, fighting back. What did he do? He grabbed that Negro and that musician, gave him that violin, and said, "Stop playing." She stopped playing. That's what they do in our communities. I mean, the James Brown, who, no disrespect to the dead, this Negro kissed more Kissinger booty than more Nixon booty than Kissinger. Real talk. So let the record reflect. And when the rebellions were happening after King got assassinated, they deployed him to these various cities to calm cats down. So it's a strategic tactic. These Pied Pipers play a role. Study the history of Rome. Whenever Rome would send the troops out to go conquer other countries, they would increase the games, entertain them. So it's a strategic tactic. So you're like, man, you know what? This is really messed up. I talked to my cousin in Detroit. He said they put all black folks in their house. They done cut the water off down there. What? Yeah, how them down in New Orleans, they did a situation where people try to come back to their home, they sweating, locking them up. Next thing you know, this big benefit concert coming up. You know, some of these rappers and talk, stop the violence. How about turn the water? They just shut the water down in Detroit. And then all of a sudden, here come these Pied Pipers. It's strategic. And then always that glimmer of hope taps into you. I might could be like him. I might could, me, I can, you might could make like one. And that's a strategic tactic that this system employs.